Welcome back to another edition of Catch of a Lifetime. In this episode, we got the opportunity to catch up with Jared Kiernan of Elk Grove, California. Most of you have probably seen the photos, videos, and articles floating around on social media about the absolute giant that Jared caught on the last day of 2019. Jared and his wife decided to spend the day at a local public lake in Northern California. Jared had been fishing for about a half an hour when he hooked into an absolute giant 14.2 pound bass. We thank Jared for taking the time to talk with us about this experience, and we hope you enjoy it.
Thanks for coming on and talking with us today, Jared.
I appreciate the interview.
Yes, sir. So tell us a little bit about this absolute giant that you were able to go out and stick on the last day of the year. Were you fishing in public waters, Jared?
Yeah, it is a public lake, a very heavily fished lake in Northern California. I'd say it's got tournaments on it every single weekend. Definitely pounded by the local people for sure.
So how did you come to this catch on the last day of the year? Did you just go out that morning? Had you been out long? Tell us how that day started off for you, Jared.
Sure. So, it was a day that I decided, me and my wife, she loves the outdoors as well, and we wanted to spend a day together. So she's like, hey, pick a spot. I want to go fishing. I want to follow you around. And I said, I'll tell you what, I've got a lake that I've been working on, trying to figure out a bite on. Let's go up there. It's a really beautiful lake. It's easily accessible to where we live. So it was a day for me and my wife to just spend some time together. So we drove up that morning, and later in the day, I'd say mid-morning, we got up there. Just sat down, had a little picnic lunch, and then we decided to fish for a little bit.
You had gone out with your wife, and you two were spending the day together and had a picnic, and so you started fishing probably not long before this fish was taken in, it sounds like, Jared.
No, we had only been fishing for maybe 30 minutes. But as a backstory a little bit, I've been fishing this lake for the past 3 years. I've seen fish in there that I would estimate in that 18-pound range probably. The lake record's at 18 something, and I seen a fish a couple years ago. I predicted in that range. She followed it in on a bait smith bag, different part of the lake, but it was a lake I decided to really dedicate some time to, try to figure out. I can tell you 7 previous trips to this one, I had blanked. Not a bite, not a follow, nothing. But I paid attention to some of the different things that were happening. I noticed there was a lot of trout fishermen. I like to fish wherever the trout are being stocked, right in the general vicinity of that, the major points and coves. And I'd seen some trout fishermen the trip before, and there was trout fishermen everywhere, but in that particular spot, they were just killing the trout. And I knew that there was some really deep water there, right off a main point that goes out into the main body. And I thought, man, that spot right there looks like the trout are kind of congregating in there. It's deep water. I think that might be a spot that some of these big fish would use to pull up in and feed. So that was my idea when I went to the lake that morning. I thought, I'm going to go hit that spot. My theory was there was some big fish sitting near there, and if you could time it right, you could find one of those big trout eaters, we call them, up in there looking to feed. And that's exactly what happened. It was my first cast on that spot. As I walked into it, I cast it out into about 30 feet of water. I let that bait fall to the bottom, and I just slowly started bouncing it back. I mean, I could feel every single inch of that bottom as it was coming back, and 75% of that cast was in. I was probably 20 feet off the bank, probably 15 feet of water, and she just absolutely smoked the bait, just almost ripped the rod out of my hand. She was definitely trying to kill that trout. I set that hook, and I knew pretty quickly that I had a fish on that I hadn't tangled with before, personally. Not for that long anyway, and I didn't have my GoPro on. I normally do. I was hoping to get it on cast to catch, and as I was reeling it in, I turned around and looked at my wife and said, hey, can you record? And she was already recording for me, so props to the wife on that one. And, boy, when I saw her come up, I couldn't even believe what I was looking at. She was just gigantic, and I was just super fortunate to be able to even interact with a fish like that.
Absolutely phenomenal fish, and we're very thankful that your wife was recording. I know that I personally have watched the video several times, Anybody that loves big bass fishing has to get excited watching that video, Jared. Tell us a little bit about the bait that you were using when you caught this monster.
Sure. So it's called a Baitsmith Magnum. It is a 9.25-inch trout imitator bait. It's got a paddle tail, and it's a slow sink bait. So it doesn't sink too quickly. I kind of like that. I like it to go a little slower, so I can crawl it a little slower on the bottom. But had a trap hook on it. I had the jig hook, and then I've always put a trap hook. And for some reason on that bait, they don't eat that bait the way they normally eat, like a Hud or some of the other baits that I use, the Nate's bait. They kind of, I feel like they're just trying to kill that bait for some reason. And fortunately, that's the hook I had her on, was that little trap hook on the back.
So, and what pound test line were you fishing with, and what type of line were you fishing with as far as fluorocarbon, or you run fluorocarbon on those rigs, Jared?
I do. I always use Seagar fluorocarbon, and this time I used Seagar fluorocarbon Tatula. That was my first time ever using it, and it is, I don't think I can ever go back. It's super expensive, but it's well worth it.
Absolutely. I would say it's worth every dime you paid for it. Jared has paid for itself. So we're excited for your catch. We congratulate you. It's an absolutely monster fish, and anybody who hasn't seen that video, we'll continue to repost that on Double Digit Bass for the next several days. And we just thank you for coming on and taking the time to talk with us, Jared. We have watched you catch several double-digit bass on video this year, and we look forward to continuing to share those videos on our platform and just trying to be as supportive as we can towards you and your pursuit of giants, Jared. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
Hey, I appreciate it very much, and I'm humbled by the support and the people reaching out to me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. If you would, just stay on the phone for a few minutes, Jared. I'm going to get a little bit more information from you.